Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Lunch wasn't good or too much of lunch? No one's saying any single thing. But I'm going to put a question before we start. How many of you guys are perhaps wearing something Indian today, consumed something Indian today, or perhaps even did that yesterday? Fewer hands, right? The thought I think I want to leave behind is we live in a very different world in India, which I think often a lot of us keep using the word Bharat now. But I think the same Bharat, we are enamored by a lot of firang, what we want to consume, wear, show, and all of that as well. And having said that, there's also a new fascination for consuming Indian. What we do have today in this great panel group is a diverse lot of people, an Indian grown fintech company which is less than 10 years old. We have a company who's been since the 1950s, and we have a company pretty much synonymous with rice. So with pretty much that introduction, I'm going to start with you, Anupam sir. And while you've played a role of running a second generation sort of business, I want to start a question which is a little very different from what the panel expects or what the audience expects. Is it easy to literally sort of fit into your father's shoes? And how easy then is it for your son to fit into your shoes?
It's a very interesting question. At the same time, I'm applying my mind. But if you look at it as a marketeer, you're always solving for the consumer. And the problems which my father would see in the world when he was operating in, let's say, late 80s or 90s, to what I am seeing today and what my son will see tomorrow. So I think the approach remains the same, but the way to solve the problem becomes different. So I think we operate very differently. I remember my father, when was looking at, developing the market, we were trying to develop a shoe which was good for everything. You wear in the morning, evening. It's a black classic shoe, and you were trying to build the market from just unorganized people wearing, erstwhile handmade shoes to the mechanized footwear. And today, the same handmade shoe is becoming more premium than what it was earlier. So I think the treatment is different because the consumer has changed and evolved. So I think we all need to follow the consumer, and I think the consumer and connected to the consumer is the spirit we follow, rather than what my father taught and what I will teach my son.
Awesome. So I think consumer first, and pretty much you sort of do your own piece as well. Kunal, while you built a fair amount of consumer brands in your past and in this current role where you sort of, I think, literally sort of playing that leader of, change again in a family-owned business, what perhaps could be the challenges for a marketer like yourselves to be in an environment which is fundamentally run by not a multinational, but it's still sort of like a owner-driven organization?
Sure. I think one of the things that I wanted to talk a little bit at length about was the fact that while there is this perception in India about owner-driven companies, but essentially the DNA that we've been talking about the Indian, the Bharatiya, I think somewhere it is ingrained within a lot of these promoter-driven organizations. My last two roles were with very professional organizations, again, Indian companies, but more professional in their journey versus today. But I feel there are a couple of advantages of working in, these kind of ecosystems, because one, there is an entrepreneurial spirit which permeates the entire ecosystem, which drives certain behaviors which are very business focused and brand focused. Decisions, the ability for me to take decisions here is much faster. And hence the point, and one of the themes that we're talking on this panel, which is about agility. And the way the world is moving today, agility is extremely important. So that's one. The second is the appetite to do things, fail, learn, and move on, which in traditional archetype, larger organizations, I feel sometimes becomes a limitation for a marketeer. is not so in, and I'm presenting a counter view to what could be the perception, but as long as there is merit in what you are putting forth to the management, it's fairly much doable. So I think when I look at it, there are much more vectors to be explored in this kind of a role versus, and hence, to all the people who are aspiring marketers, getting into larger roles, I want to really advocate the point that do look at working in these, organizations which come from a very promoter background, but also bring lot more value to the table than you would probably imagine.
Well said indeed. So Raj, these are companies who've been there for a couple of generations. What perhaps motivates someone like a very senior professional like you to sort of, I think, take a punt and move into, again, first of its kind Indian company trying to want to create a world of its own crypto?
Before this, it's a very good sense that I'm getting from both of them, because my previous job was at Jio. When I was hired, the pitch to me was that, don't you want to become a part of the world's largest startup? So, that atmosphere there is completely different. And when you come to a smaller setup, okay, this is all said and done, WazirX is one of the largest crypto exchanges, but the scale is completely different. So the idea that, a second generation entrepreneur that MDA is, to a first generation entrepreneur that Nishal, my founder, is, there is a lot of difference in how they are actually operating stuff. So, during the lockdown, I was, constantly, so I had discovered crypto during the lockdown, as, most people did. And then I started haranguing Nishal on, my suggestions with my marketing gyan. So, he literally told me, it's very easy, Andar Raja, and then do what you want to do. Once you get into the system, then you decide, then you find out how difficult it is, all the stuff that you give gyan from outside to implement it. But all said and done, when you have a technology entrepreneur driving stuff, they get it. So it's a completely different mind space. And at the same time, I didn't want to miss out on this really exciting space, which promises to upend the world of traditional finance, the traditional, commodity markets. So that the sheer excitement, the adrenaline rush, is what a new sector driving and building growth in something that is really unexplored. That's what drove me to actually take up this stint.
Tell me something also for the benefit of people who sort of know pretty much when they buy regular products of their daily consumption. Is it a hard one to market crypto as compared to marketing rice or shoe?
Very hard, Kunal. You actually hit the nail on the head. So when Bitcoin is at, say, $116,000, there's a rush to buy Bitcoin. Now it is at a 50% off, so you can literally buy Bitcoin at $75,000. By the way,
you can't put, like how some would put, saying, clearance sale, 40% sale, just come.
I can, but the mentality is not there. People are not there to buy it. So it's completely, I hate to use the word herd mentality, but sentiment plays a huge role. So I was just outside, and one young man was helping me get registration done. So he said, WazirX, and he's telling me, I was also in crypto, but I'm no longer in crypto. So I said, what are you in? So he says, I'm in gold ETFs. So, and he's just 19 years old. So the audience is fickle, the consumers are fickle, but these ideas are there to last a lifetime. So as long as you're not a trend and you are offering something tangible and worthwhile, seasons might come, seasons might go, but you have to remain, there when the high season comes.
Someone like you, sir, has seen, the consumers who sort of, I think, want everything different, maybe in a different season, or you're the one creating that difference and enabling it in terms of season, fashion, all of that, right? What I want to ask is sort of from a digital, lens, we see so much of data. How much of that gets pollinated to actually product development, does that happen as well, or it is more a function of there's a product team which doesn't necessarily work with, say, data, insights, war rooms, and all of that?
So I think I would like to take a combination report. So I think if you just look at data and base all your decisions on basis of that, probably is also not the best solution. I think application of mind is must. If data was the only thing, then AI would only just take over the world. So while I think it is a tool to assist you to take better decisions, but I think the differentiation comes from the human mind, which makes a differentiator. Say, for example, if you want to give more focus to the new trends, which probably may not be in the data. So it is not about one data source. So you need to take a combination of the multiple data source and looking at what you feel where you want to place bets. You need to operate upon. While AI is always an enabler, while data analysis is definitely most important, I don't want to say, but it is not that you can just keep on asking ChatGPT what to do and they will start writing business strategy for you. So I think it is important that you take guidance, more awareness, but you need to, at the end of the day, use human mind to, and the
So
day.
I'm going to come back to you on that as well. So just for the benefit of the room, because we've had lots of discussions on AI since the morning as well, I'm going to try and 100% pivot back on this point that you made and talk about the importance of human intelligence. And I'm going to flip to you, Kunal, in terms of, give me a sense in terms of, I think, when, a company is born here and now like India Gate, you sort of literally sort of travel into other geographies as well. Is it a feeling of, this, feeling high every day when you walk into the office, right? Because you're saying that now I'm in Vietnam, now I'm in Cambodia, now I'm in Greece, now I'm in South America. And what is that rush to you? Because you've made the brand pretty much borderless.
I think, Kushal, on that, I think one of the things, and when we walk into the office, I mean, being part of a family of India Gate, one of the things that comes to our mind is we have India in our name, which is immense power, right? There is power in the brand name itself. Secondly, in the category that we operate in, which is largely basmati rice, basmati is a GI tag product of India, and we are taking that to 90 plus countries globally. Our aspiration is to take basmati rice onto plates globally, right? And with that single-minded objective over the last 25 years, we worked to open up newer markets, newer countries, newer consumption occasions. I think as long as that vision is clear and ingrained amongst all the people who are working within the organization, it provides immense clarity to all of us in terms of where we are headed. So I think some of these things have been, I would say, providing immense support to us in terms of driving towards our objective.
I'm going to stay with you again, Kunal, and the next question is perhaps the fact that how do you make a product like basmati relevant in maybe a nation which doesn't know that so well?
I think, and when I do that when I talk a lot about food, I think food is a lot about habits, right? And food, in fact, I call food and culture to be two sides of the coin, and they're as close as that, right? Changing food habits is again a very difficult task in any part of market, and India, as you would know, is like a cohort of multiple countries in a way in terms of, so just to give you a very interesting example in our category, basmati as it is consumed in the northern part of the country versus how it is consumed in the south is also very different. A lot of these digital social signals today kind of provide us a lot of interesting insights on entry points into the consumer's household. So from a landscape point of view, I think keeping that vision in mind, we look at what we are solving for in each market and what could be a potential entry point into the consumer's life with rice as a product, right? In South, for example, we all know that, lemon rice, coconut rice, mint rice is something that people consume. And a lot of data signals told us that consumers are adopting basmati into, their lifestyle by using basmati for this. So that's what we try to ride on. So similarly, we look at all of these data trends, social listening, etc., constantly helping us and giving us these insights to drive the category. So that's on what we do.
So when there's so many brands in the category of shoes, almost being launched every month, new D2C startups, companies pretty much selling on Insta, and then of course you have all the global ones as well. What is it that you think, and maybe give us an insight for the whole audience as well, that the moment you actually talk about the real Bharat and who's living, breathing in tier 2 or tier 3, right? He perhaps hasn't heard of Nike or Puma. And therefore, what sort of feeling do you feel that, everyone knows a shoe equals to Liberty shoes?
So I think we don't start with any presumption that people have not heard of a brand.
Sure.
Today, I think the world of media on which we are doing conference and with the digital presence, I think everybody knows everything. So we don't presume that people don't know the brand. So the changes I've observed is where you started from, Bharat, India. I think gone are the days where people only thought imported was better. I think the respect for India and Indianness has increased, I think, which is a great shift in the consumer mind, which Liberty as a brand, I would be the one who would position it more international, but I think I'm proud to say that I will position it more India because the consumer has evolved. Today, you need to understand the consumer sentiment. So people are looking for good product, great value for money. It's not about just flaunting a brand. I think the logos, the role it played probably few years to today, it doesn't make a difference. I think people are looking for good product. Everybody wants individual fashion. So it is not about people know your brand or not. I think you need to work on all sentiments, put all 5 pieces together and say, I have a great product, I have a great price, I'm doing a problem solving for you. And it is not just because it's Nike, it is good, or it is, let's say, XYZ. So I think you need to compete at all levels and make a good value proposition for the customer for them to buy a decision rather than just a brand in itself.
I just wanted to add
Sure, Kunal.
one point here, Kushal, and I think, like Anupam mentioned, that the new age consumer, the value that they see from a brand is not just the flaunt value of it. It's shifting. It's also shifting in the point that consumers are seeing what does the brand stand for, what is it doing to give back to society or to larger order things. So when consumers are seeing brands, I think for a newer generation, I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that the value systems and what they're seeking brands is also changing, and I think that's important for all of us as Indian brands to bring that to the fore.
How difficult was it, Raj, for you to sort of, I think, put the narrative of building for an Indian crypto?
We used a lot of unconventional, now it's called jugaad, but it's in the tech space, it's actually innovation. WazirX was founded in 2018, and within 2 months, the RBI banned banks from working with crypto. So it's infamous, everybody knows about that. But instead of just sitting on our hands, what we did was very interesting. We built the P2P model. So WazirX became the platform where if I wanted to buy or sell crypto, I held it in escrow. Once the receiver confirmed that he had received the crypto, we released the money. So there were crypto exchanges before WazirX, but we were the guys who actually turned this adversity into an opportunity, as trite as it may seem. But what that did was that it got us the initial wave of customers. So 2018 was when the second bull run of Bitcoin happened. So you had a lot of consumers just logging onto the platform because we were the only guys who made crypto accessible. And from there we realized that, you can make crypto accessible to every Indian. And then once that happened, we did something again very interesting. We had a very interesting referral program. So what WazirX did at that time was that if you referred someone, on every trade that he makes, there's a brokerage or a trading fee. So if Kushal refers Anupam, and Anupam makes a trade, Kushal gets 50% of Anupam's trading fees.
Yeah.
So again, the growth just took off. And by 2021, we were doing transaction volumes. That was the second bull run when Bitcoin hit $67,000. We did a turnover of $43 billion. Okay, for a 3-year company, it's nothing short of remarkable. So, and then of course you had the taxes and all that came in. But when you try and you innovate in providing a service that works and in growing viral, it helped a lot for us to become the category leaders at that point of time. And again, this is, the industry is still so young. So you have about, I think, 500 million users of UPI in India. You have, I think, 15 crore people with DP accounts. And there are only 50 million users who use crypto. So if you look at the scale that crypto can reach in India alone, and by the way, India is the largest growing users of crypto. So year after year, Indians adopt to crypto like never before. So the market is there, everything is there. Now you just have to execute to the best you can.
It's just not that you're eating rice twice a day. It's not that you're buying shoes every month.
Absolutely.
So that's the only difference between crypto, but crypto is there for sure, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm, thoughtful of the fact that I think companies in their own journey, and the reason I'm asking you this, Kunal, is because for years you've used the biggest celebrity India knows or sees or, listens to or believes he's God and all of that, right? So what is that high that a marketer gets, to just feel that he's working with Mr. Bachchan?
So I'll give you an anecdote from the shoot.
Sure.
So, interestingly, we were shooting with Mr. Bachchan and one of the brand managers was bugging him.
Sure.
Sir, ye shot de dijiye, sir. So, in his unique way, he said, yeah, you are fired. So, he has this, obviously got a tremendous aura and anybody who has worked in marketing, one of the fascinations at the earlier stage of life is obviously to work with large celebrities. But having said that, I think as brands of, of this kind and stature, I think we also realize that there is a role that a celebrity of his stature does in terms of getting us reach into, specific markets through larger television advertising. But at the same point of time, we are cognizant of the fact that there are other objectives that the brand needs to achieve, which may go beyond just a traditional celebrity approach, right? And I think there is a mix and match of both that has to continue both in the media ecosystem and in the creative ecosystem going forward, just so that because there is such a wide audience that brands like us are catering to, so we have to do that, and that's what we continually do as
So
part.
Raj, is there sometimes this bit of a FOMO as a CMO or as a owner or as a founder saying, Kunal is using Mr. Bachchan, but maybe, it's not, maybe I can't have him. Are there those moments in marketers' lives of aspiration in categories which maybe don't have as much of regular marketing spend?
Kunal has got Bachchan, but crypto has got Elon Musk.
Fabulous.
So he teaches non-stop about crypto. So you have the world's biggest influencer talking about crypto. There are pros and cons, and we've consciously stayed away from that because we believe in a different, in a different way. We won't get into that. But every time Musk tweets, I can feel, Doge going up and down in terms of volumes on WazirX. So I'm not to say that celebrities don't work.
So he's the largest influencer for
absolutely.
barometer of your sort of success.
Absolutely.
Yeah? I'm going to come to you, sir, in terms of, I think, it's a bit the role that you're playing, of course, as a founder, but you play this massive role which you just, continue to do is to sort of really sort of help the Indian startup ecosystem through, I think, all that you're doing on Idea Bars as well. What is it that really fascinates you about the India story?
So I definitely believe in India. I think that's a given. And I feel Indian youth is doing great work in terms of thinking and innovative ideas. And I think when I went on Idea Bar stage to hear what youth said in the real world, amount of ideas, the marketing ideas, I think it was a mind opener for me. And I think I would like to acknowledge that at Idea Bars, I really learned a lot. And it helped me to connect India better, to reach small houses and how people think. And it was like a whole class on how the business is working. On top of it, it gives us new ideas because, as a brand, other than the family business of shoes, you need to constantly evolving to newer business ideas. It gives me opportunity to connect with them and also give back to the society in terms of mentorship, in terms of if I can build new business ideas. And I think it was a great learning. And I think startup ecosystem is very fascinating for me. And I feel this will build new India.
Well said. Kunal, your company is now, of course, a listed sort of company as well. Is there times or moments, for example, that you do activities necessarily for an ecosystem which is the financial consumer and not the consumer who sort of buys your product for daily consumption of rice?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting one because, for a CMO to work with budgets today and versus 10 years back, it was a fairly linear ecosystem. Create a great ad, run it on linear TV, you get your numbers. Very simple life. Today, the complexities in the ecosystem are the digital ecosystem, which in itself have subsets of influencers, connected TV, and so on, and I can keep going on that. There is a whole commerce ecosystem which resides in e-commerce, which is humongous amount of consumer data. Earlier we used to have only Nielsen data, Kantar data. Now you have so much of data which is residing at a commerce ecosystem, which really, one, opens up a huge palette for the marketer. I think one of the things that I've kept constant from earlier times is the fact that I always give the marketing team and my team a certain budget to play around and fiddle around with, which is what I feel is a learning budget for us. You get small successes. Just a case in point, while we run a campaign on Indian values with Mr. Bachchan, but on Women's Day we ran a influencer which gave us 30 million reach and 1 lakh shares in 2 days, right? So and we didn't know when we went into it what would happen. So I think somewhere a lot of learning as marketers is happening as we go along. And that's something that I keep giving the team, while yes, with the CFO and the larger management, there are numbers and metrics that we need to be accountable for. And there is this conversation on ROI, on marketing. And as there are more, I would say, buckets to put the marketing investment into, there is always going to be struggle because there is finite investment every brand would have. So I think it's a balance of both here too, but we make sure that the marketing team is able to experiment, learn and scale up ideas which do well.
I won't want to ask you what is the experimentation budget or what percentage, but sir, in this fast-paced algorithmic world of data, literally nanoseconds as well, if I was to ask you, honestly, how often do you do marketing based on gut and how often do you do marketing based on insight?
I do mostly on gut basis, while I would like to learn more data analytics and if I can implement it better. Somehow I have not...
But you built a fantastic business then on gut. So is there enough which you can tell the audience that don't necessarily go by the granular data and those signals and God knows whatever that we do as digital people, but sometimes just go by human gut?
So it will become little inappropriate, people who believe in data. I can't sit
No, I'm
on
not
this
saying
platform.
that for sure.
Sure. So I'm saying it is very important. I'm talking about my personal experience that gut has worked better for us.
Yeah.
While I would keep on learning from data, and if I can improve my decision making, I would like to improve it.
So is it fair to say that business owners or families running Indian businesses or entrepreneurs are more gut and less insight, or a combination of both, or what is that? Can you give a sort of percentage?
So like I said, I've become 50 plus and I think the marketeers are now in 20s, and I think today it is important to learn the data analytics if I have not cracked that thing right, and I will always keep on telling them to also believe in gut. So I think it's a combination approach. I don't want to give merit to anyone, and I think each brand would have to follow a different strategy, and I think it is fair to say that startups may use a different strategy and our legacy brands may use a different strategy. I think that's not one formula which fits in all. I think everybody needs to devise their own differentiating scenario and make a success out of it.
Fantastic. So if I was to then not ask you the same question, but in a sense, do you ever feel that, in a category like me, also I can use gut?
No, not really, because here when you are running a website, everything is black and blue. So
Yeah.
you have the numbers in front of you, and when you see a dip in numbers, you definitely see that there is an issue. And usually it's the marketing team who actually finds out, hey, the numbers are down, and there's something problem with it. But I've been fortunate to work on both ends of the aisle. So here we completely, you optimize, and then you make your numbers as optimized as possible. But on the other end, so at a job I won't name where, so the website was orange. So I said, what are you doing? It has to be blue. Mark Zuckerberg's website is blue because, blue is the color of the internet. Nahin, someone up there, wife likes orange.
I know we're just about time up, but I'm going to just ask one Indian brand that you can't live without.
Indian brand that I can't live without. Can you ask everyone and then I'll come back to you?
Meaning then you pretty much can live without. I'll start with Kunal, okay?
I'll start with something baser than us is...
No, don't put India Gate.
No, water. So I said baser than that, water, Bisleri in front of me.
Okay, what about you, sir?
Air India.
Fabulous. Now you don't have...
Sorry, again, thanks to Anupam ji, the best service that I've ever experienced and I have tremendous nostalgia for is Jet Airways. I think no brand has come close to Jet Airways, and the fact that I remember it, and you caught me off guard, and in spite of that, that is the brand that comes, top of mind after 10 years.
And it's not Amul, it's not glucose biscuit, it's none of those, but it's Jet Airways.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know that you guys are sort of running short of time. We won't take any questions. We're here pretty much through the day. You can take our questions outside as well. But these are three fabulous people building three exceptionally fantastic businesses for India, India to the world. Thanks for sort of giving us ears, and thank you so much for being part of this.